Hey, welcome to Coastal News, a tabletop news show where I share with you the things that warmed my cold, vacant heart. But don't worry, it's mostly board games, and this picture of a penguin wearing a sweater. Root, the game about cute, cuddly critters kicking each other in the shins in a forest of death. That is pretty much the theme. It's gone digital, and it's now available to play on Steam. So Root, which is an asymmetrical war game full of different woodland factions, cats, birds, like a raccoon guy or something, and Woodland Alliance, go head to head to achieve dominance over the forest through card play, delicate negotiation, and when that inevitably fails, combat. But never the penguins, those peaceful and ridiculous, benevolent masters of the ice. The digital version by Direwolf Digital has solo play versus an AI, or you can play with friends via Steam. It's out now, and look. According to Board Game Geek, it's the 34th most popular game of ever, so I thought it worth a mention. At the moment, it's early access, so tweaks and changes are still being made. You need a Direwolf account, and you can even play side by side in a pass and play mode, which I'm sure some people might want, and it's on Mac as well as PC, which I'm certainly happy about. There's been a bunch of announcements news. There's been a bunch of announcements. Hadrian's Wall, while remaining one of the most underwhelming landmarks in Britain, I know it's technically a marvel, but it's not exactly Machu Picchu. In most places, it's barely a wall. In some parts, Hadrian's Wall is essentially a hedge. Like, if I want to go to a field and be underwhelmed, I could just go to a local farm and think about my life. But the Hadrian's Wall that caught my eye was the one announced by Shem Phillips of Garfield Games, designer of the West Kingdom trilogy. In this arguably more dynamic and exciting Hadrian's Wall, players take on the role of Roman generals, yes, building a fortification and their segment of the wall in a bid to get valour, renown, piety and discipline, the four most hilarious traits, while avoiding disdain, which is a trope that those familiar with his other games will recognise. What may come as a surprise though is that according to Shem, while it doesn't have any dice, it does fall into the roll and write category of games. Each turn, 2 cards are flipped, and then buddy, you've got a decision to make. My suggestion, if you want to make an impressive monument, try building it more than 3 feet tall. I am absolutely in on this game, especially as this looks more like it's in the style of his game Raiders of Scythia, which I tell you right now, I was all about. There's no release date yet, but come on, how hard can it possibly be to design a board game? I mean, really. Like my game, on Ploys, the Deep Sea Mafia game that's recently been reviewed by an idiot. Clash of Cultures, the classic, epic, and many would argue definitive civilization game of expansion, technology, wonders, combat, and of course just a boatload of minis, is back with a reprint, the Monumental Edition by WizKids, and is slated for possibly as early as November. That's literally what it's called, by the way, the Monumental Edition. I think because it's got like 300 minis in, including each of the 7 wonders, though not to be confused with Monumental or 7 wonders. 8 wonders if you include Hadrian's Wall, which no one has ever. What else makes this version monumental is that it also includes the very well received Civilizations and Aztec expansions in the box, and the whole thing does just look epic, which ties into the epic scale and depth the game aims to achieve. It's also a game that's been very out of print with expansions that have been impossible to find, so this might be a very, very large jumping in point for people who wanted to get on board with what's meant to be a fantastic civilization game. Cartographers, the award-winning flip and write game, is now an app out of nowhere, like a goblin up a tree. Just one day you look, it's in the App Store and there it is. Now it's on my phone because I love Cartographers. It's fully implemented for both Apple and Android. It's got 3 ways to play, including classic, as well as 2 types of weekly rotating set games, so your score can be compared against everyone else in the world playing. So, in roll and write fashion, it really is aiming that upper level of player count, which includes everybody on the planet. It's a great implementation. I've been enjoying it a lot, and I think you might too. So I'm a big fan of role-playing games and Studio Ghibli, so when I saw Weiß, Unclouded, the new unofficial D&D adventure anthology inspired by Studio Ghibli and the works of Hayao Miyazaki, I joyfully exclaimed, quite loudly to myself, a string of words that I won't be repeating here. But needless to say, I was rather excited. Weiß Unclouded features 11 adventures, all inspired by Studio Ghibli films, to be played as one-shots or added into your campaigns. You could start a delivery service for witches, drive your own moving castle, or maybe battle your way home from being somewhat spirited away. If you know the Studio Ghibli films, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you're like that one scene in Ponyo, you know, where Ponyo's like this fish, but she's also a girl. Okay, so Japan. Okay, so, and if you like D&D as well as Studio Ghibli, then I'm sure you'll be heading over, when the video's finished, come on people, open a new browser tab, so you can go and buy the PDF right now, or wait for the physical copy, which is in the pipeline. Talking about anime, as I often am to anybody who will listen, Mob Psycho is getting a Schwarz set. For those of you who don't know what Schwarz is, it's a massive collectible card game made by Bushiroad. Essentially, it's a two-player card-driven fight. Think Magic the Gathering, but most of the sets, and there are just an incredible amount of sets, are based on different animes. Goblin Slayer, Sword Art Online, JoJo. And if you haven't heard of any of those titles, open your heart to the world of anime. Also, they are massive IPs, like multi-million-dollar IPs, just huge. And now Mob Psycho is getting a set, and therefore this week I've been spending a lot of time down a very deep and slightly terrifying Schwarz rabbit hole. The Mob Psycho set is currently slated following the November release of the Adventure Time set, so my guess is it will be available sometime early next year. Talking about card games, again, as I often am, Magic the Gathering has made yet another announcement. It's pretty hard keeping up with Wizards of the Coast release schedule. Kind of feels more like a tower defense game, you know, where all the different sets are trying to steal my wallet. Commander Legends has been officially announced. There's no release date yet, but it's the Year of Commander, or so the press release says. So to cut a very long press release down to a paragraph with as much grace as cutting myself out of a giant sandworm, this is a draftable Commander set. You sit down, draft 3 packs of 20 cards, and then play Commander. According to Wizards of the Coast, the set will span all of Magic's history. You draft 2 cards at a time. All Commander rules apply to the set, but they've added a bunch of things to make sure that you won't get stuck with an unplayable mess at the end, including a bunch of monocolour creatures to use as commanders, the return of the keyword partner on those commanders, and at least one new colourless commander, the Prismatic Piper. Whatever that is. The only change to the Commander format itself in this set is that it's also, and this is a pretty big deal for Commander, it's no longer singleton, so you won't be stuck with a bunch of useless cards if you draft more than one of anything. Like a bunch of walls. Anyone remember wall cards? I hate wall cards. My least favourite wall card is Hadrian's Wall. Uncastable jank nonsense. Okay, some quick fire news. There's a new Tapestry expansion set for release in September called Plans and Ploys, which has new civilizations, new achievements and new landmarks. Pandasaurus have announced a sequel to Dinosaur Island. Staying on theme, it's called Dinosaur World, so that means that we know the third game will certainly be called Dinosaur Galaxy, though how it will use the controls is something the designers will just have to work out. The Kickstarter is currently set to launch for that on September 22nd. And there's a new, and this is a very long title, DC Comics deck building game, Dark Knight Metal, coming from Cryptozoic, where 2 to 5 players take on evil versions of superheroes like the Batman Who Laughs, taken from the Dark Knight Metal comic book series. And this looks very, very cool. It's out in Q3, and there's a lot of online retailers already taking pre-orders. If you have any news you want mentioned, then please send it in for consideration to news@whatitplayed.tv. Who knows? Maybe you'll win a prize. I mean, it will be a totally unrelated prize. Merely a coincidence. To be crystal clear, there are no prizes. Finally, there's the announcement of Cloud Age, a new game from a new publisher, Nanox Games, by old faithful Alexander Pfister and Arno Steinwender. According to Pfister, Cloud Age is lighter than his games Great Western Trail and Maracaibo, but heavier than Isle of Skye. In Cloud Age, which is an engine and deck building campaign game, I'm listening, players will be finding a better life years after a mysterious, secret society named Cloud.
Clouds. I didn't see that coming.
Cloud, who sabotaged oil production, which caused a huge environmental disaster. Which, admittedly, is the plot from Final Fantasy VII, but you'll be upgrading airships, gaining a crew. Again, no relation, but that is the plot of Final Fantasy VII. But you'll be in search of a new life above the clouds. It looks wicked, and it will be set to release in November. Oh, and also there's an expansion to Maracaibo, which has been semi-announced, so hopefully that's coming soon too. Until next time, I've been Matthew Jude, this is Call to the News, and thank you so much for watching.